vaccine. 80% of the vaccine supply globally is made in India, but all of the intermediary, the APIs, is all procured from China. So I would say China and India, it's like left eye and right eye, because we are good.
Hi everyone, this is the PHBS Entrepreneurship Society. Today we have Arjun Natarajan, the founder of A&J Consulting International, with us today. So Mr. Natarajan, may I ask you to introduce yourself, tell us about yourself.
Yes, thank you for having me, Nicholas, in this platform. So like you mentioned, I'm the founder and chairman of A&J Consulting International. We are a management consulting and an investment firm. We predominantly focus on cross-border expansion, entry to new markets, primarily between China and India. So we help businesses, governments, private entities, public entities expand the entire businesses or certain verticals to India and vice versa. So it's been around 3 years. So I started my firm in Hangzhou. We're headquartered out of Hangzhou with offices, multiple offices in China, in Fujian, in Zhejiang. Now we are in Guangdong as well. And we have offices in India. And we have more than 5+ partner firms in 10+ cities in 10+ countries across the world who help us with the other countries and third countries facilitation. In addition to this, I'm also the director of CCOIC, that is the China Chamber of International Commerce. And I also serve as an advisor to the Zhejiang Commerce Department.
That's a really impressive background. And so you mentioned A&J Consulting International helps cross-border startups and other companies. So may I ask, what are the key hurdles that cross-border businesses face?
Right. So normally we don't, as a consulting firm, we don't play much in the startup space because for the consulting side, but for the investment vertical, to some capacity, we do in the startup or a medium-sized enterprise. So for any cross-border company that's looking to expand, so one thing is there's no one-size-fits-all solution. See, that is something that we have to understand from the American, I would say it's one of their failure methodology. When a lot of these American companies in the 60s and the 70s that came to India or pretty much anywhere in Africa, in China, or in Southeast Asia, they went with the same strategy in most of the instances to what they followed in the US. But in India, it's a very diverse country. In fact, India is like the European Union. It is a continent pretending to be a country. So every 100 miles you go, people speak a different language, their etiquettes, the business, and the cultural sensitivity are different. Though there are a lot of things in common, but there are a lot of very probable and important aspects that are very different and that separate us. So for cross-border companies especially, they have to see why they want to expand to cross-border. There's one thing, because see, you don't want to come to India just to manufacture and export. India is a large market for it to be tapped. So for our clients, we generally advise if they are looking to cater to the Indian market, it makes more sense. Or from India, they want to export to countries that India has an FTA with. So that makes more sense. And in most of the senses, categories, India has a good rapport or relationship with the European Union's principles and standards, compliance standards. So there are instances where companies, rather than sending it from Thailand or some countries from the Southeast exporting goods to the European Union, it's better to have a hub in India, manufacture it, or at least assemble it and send it to the European Union, because the European Union already has been doing business with the Indian country, and they're aware of the compliances, how the government facilitates, and it's more of an easy go. So in one word, the biggest challenge is understanding whichever country you're going, their regional business sensitivity and cultural sensitivity, because each country is different. And in India especially, there are more than 28 states, like 28 provinces, and almost 17 provinces are completely different to each other.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving those details. May I also ask, since you're based in China, what is the key challenge that Indian companies face when expanding to China, or when Chinese companies expand to India?
Right, and honest truth here is mostly what we have seen is Chinese outbound. See, as an Indian myself and have lived overseas globally, both in the West, in the United States, I worked there, I worked in China, I've studied in Europe. So I even studied in the UK as well. So from what I've noticed is China is ahead of India in terms of infrastructure, in terms of development in many sectors. That is without a doubt. But there are certain sectors that India is doing a wonderful job, and we are improving aggressively, similar to China at least. So it's more of Chinese companies or Chinese outbound investment that happens in India rather than Indian companies going to China. Yes, there are companies that have gone, but it's if you look at the stats, it's relatively very small. So for Chinese companies, I'll answer the question two halves. So the first being the Chinese companies that want to enter India. Normally, the Chinese companies play it safe, unlike the Western companies. What that means is the Chinese companies come with a smaller amount of investment, first to test the market to see it. Most of the investment is less than $1 million. But whereas an American company that is going to get incorporated in India, normally their paid up capital or the registration capital it's more than $1 million in many of the instances. So this shows that two things I like to highlight is one, the Chinese understand businesses, the Asian way of doing businesses. So they first want to test it out. They don't want to immediately go in big. So, and if you look at it, there are more than 10,000 American firms, or at least American incorporated entities in India, whereas there are like only 1,000, give or take a little bit more, 1,000 Chinese enterprises that are incorporated in India. That shows the amount of companies that are actually coming in. And in terms of Chinese companies, to some segment, there are companies in the tech space, in the IT consultancy space. Tata, TCS they have an office in Hangzhou. They've been in Hangzhou for a very long time. And there are a lot of these trade that happens between India and Fujian, especially in the handicraft and the tourism sector that goes on. And in Kunming, because the cultural similarities are a little higher than other provinces, I would say. So on that side, but in terms of the pharma side, there's a lot of collaboration that happens because though India is very good at making vaccines and exporting vaccines, 80% of the vaccine supply globally is made in India, but all of the intermediary, the APIs is all procured from China. So I would say China and India, it's like left eye and right eye, because we are good at something with the Western world, and China pretty much, there is a saying that goes 30 to 40% of the world is made in China. And these are crucial elements. So India, the capital goods, the intermediary goods, we don't make it here. We have to get it from China. Whether we like it or not, China is a very dependent and a needed partner for us.
I see. Yeah, thank you so much for explaining. So it seems like quite a lot of things to navigate for cross-border companies. So may I ask, how does A&J Consulting help cross-border companies to overcome their challenges?
Right. So I would like to highlight a bit of a personal story, because when we started this company, so it was with the sole intention not just to cater services to clients that want to come to India, but more importantly, we want to bridge China and India together, not just on the business scale, but cultural and information symmetry advocacy, I would say. Because deep down, I do have a very high regard for the Chinese culture and in many regards of how Chinese conduct business. So I started the firm with this fundamental intention that, okay, I want to bridge these two nations. Though we are neighbors, we do not know much. I mean, at least we have lost our connection, at least somewhere down the line, ever since India was colonized by the British Raj. So how we do it is, Chinese companies, they need a hand-holding service. Normally, how it goes is, I can call up a Dutch company, a French company, a Swiss company. So they're like, oh, you provide exclusive service, they're willing to give the business. But with the Asian mentality, you need to kind of, rub shoulders with them, build a certain amount of trust with them. That's how, I mean, in Chinese, we call it guangqi, but it's more than that. You kind of have to create an element of trust that, okay, these guys will do the work for you. Whether you're capable or not capable, that's a secondary discussion, but you need to have that kind of a portrayal. And in most of the instances for our clients, we partnered with them. So meaning that we are not just a service provider, we partner as a working partner. We take up certain business verticals to settle down, to inform the company, to operate the company, to deal with the government. One of the reasons was that a lot of Chinese companies that are operating in India felt that, okay, initially some company helped me incorporate here, start my business, but now I have to deal with the Indian authorities. It's too much for me. So it's like, we say, let the Indians deal with the Indians, because it's easier that way. Let the Chinese deal with the Chinese. It makes more sense that way. So we provide a hand-holding service. And also, initially, what was happening in the market was a Chinese company had to go through so much of paperwork and bureaucracy. What that means is they have to deal with like 10 government departments or 10 plus service providers to get something done in a holistic manner. So we figured out, yes, that is not going to change. The government will always keep things complex. It's never going to be like one-step solution, but we can be the facilitator in that. So we wanted to be a one-stop solution for our Chinese companies. So whereas we mediate with, let it be like 10 plus companies or different government departments, and whereas the client has to only deal with us. So we have different people to take up different sets of works. So combined with a one-stop solution with the hand-holding service, I think that's one of the unique model that has actually with the Chinese frontier, any consulting company has proposed, because I mean, we are aware of our competition and most of them do not provide a hand-holding or a partnership services. Simply put, even the big consulting companies, like the KPMG, PwC, they do not work or facilitate government interactions, liaison for the government, and assist in every single step of the way. But whereas we are more of a medium-sized firm, but we have assisted and we are equipped to assist them in as many ways as possible. If we do not know, we figure it out. I mean, it's case-to-case basis, definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot more personalized service for the companies. May I now ask about opportunities? So what do you see are the greatest opportunities for cross-border businesses between China and India at the moment?
I would say it's picking up. I mean, see, one of the very reasons I was in the cross-border consulting space when I was working in the United States. So we have had some successful projects in 2018 that we brought to Shanghai. But between India and China, right now is the opportunity. Because whatever we are doing right now, I started it 10 years ahead, it's too early. If I'm going to start 10 years later, it is too late. Now is what I like to term it as the sweet spot. Because the entire economy, the world, global economy is shifting east from the west. And yes, China is leading the way, but India is also in the picture. For the coming 10 years, India and China will lead the race. Next 15 years after that, it's going to be the Southeast. Indonesia, the Philippines, and the surrounding countries will come. And 20 years later, it's going to be the African continent that's going to go boom. That's going to have a big boom. And in terms of opportunities, there's a lot, because a lot of these Indian successful startups or unicorns have Chinese investments. In fact, India is one of the biggest IPO companies. Paytm has not just SoftBank, but has Alibaba has their earlier investors. So in all the major Indian apps, there are Chinese investments. Though the Chinese investment has been on a halt for the past 1-2 years due to COVID and recent geopolitical tension. But see, Chinese know where to invest, because the American firms, Western firms have been in the country for much longer period than Chinese. But the amount of returns or growth in that particular time frame, I think China it's like a time machine. I mean, what we call it in our local jargon, this how China was 10 years back, India is going through the same problems. And in a lot of these speeches I give, I always tell people that if India wants to learn from a country, it's not Japan, it's not the United Kingdom, it's not Germany, it's not Canada, it's not the US. Only China has 1.3 billion people in population. And the type of problem they face, the type of mentality when a law has to be enforced, it's very similar. So we have to learn from China. We have to, in fact, see what China has done right and what China has missed out or how it has failed implementing something. So that is the learning curve India has to take. And in terms of cross-border, everything is picking up. In terms of today's the digital era, especially Industry 4.0, 5.0, AI, blockchain. I mean, definitely, relatively speaking, China is leading the race, but India is also coming up. And in terms of the EV, battery manufacturing, lithium-ion battery manufacturing, India does not even have a supply chain for that. Semiconductor manufacturing, we are nowhere close. All of this can, at least at some level, at some capacity, can come to India. So these provide a lot of opportunities, or at some capacity. So that's what we notice. That's what we are noticing. And India is a huge market. I mean, if you sell your product, even in the business concept, we call it as the bottom of the pyramid. You sell your product for pennies in the dollars, but you have 1 million people buy it, you still make your ROI. You know, it is that way.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
There's a lot of opportunities between India, but cracking the market is the most biggest challenge, because on paper, everything seems, yes, it can be done. But executing it, that's the biggest challenge. And that's one of the reasons there's hardly any other firm that focuses predominantly between these two Asian markets. They do pan-Asia, they do global. So yes, we have also branched out to multiple third countries, but as a sole focus of China and India, I think we are one of the very few firms in the world that actually cater to this market with customized service.
Yeah, I think certainly, as you say, now is the most exciting time to be involved with cross-border between China and India. May I ask, is there any particular industry or particular technology that you see would be the best area for cooperation between the two countries?
Well, in terms of technology, there is, because in terms of IT infrastructure, anything with Industry 4.0 or 5.0, let it be warehouse, supply chain management, the type of technology, what do you call, Alibaba has, and Tencent is trying to come in. So India, in terms of blockchain, we are far behind. I think, and AI, China has one of the highest number of AI patents in the world. They have even surpassed the United States. So, and mission vision, there was one project that we did. It was a project from California, and that particular client wanted to customize in the camera technology space. They wanted to customize the product and prototype the product in China and sell it and market it in India. So that is something we see. I mean, China has moved from the era of, okay, they reverse engineer to they are innovating now. So anything to do with the digitization, big data, the way it is implemented, blockchain, NFTs is not largely in China, but in terms of, we have invested in blockchain companies. So one of our subsidiary is in the blockchain tech. And as of 2021, we have an exclusive MOU signed with the Hangzhou government, the municipal government. So for not just digital integration, blockchain integration, and now project testing is going on. So I think that's going to be the next thing. China is capitalizing big time. The government is pushing it, the reforms. What I would say is, it does not matter what kind of technology it is. Technology will come, technology will go. There'll always be that curve that goes and it drops. It is, can the country capitalize on it? That's the biggest bet. That's the biggest bet, because China is enforcing on a lot of these new technologies, green technology. So President Xi's campaign on green technology, a lot of these M&A work that happens, or IPR trading that happens globally in terms of green tech or any of this industry 5.0 tech, big demand, big demand. So, or if there is a breakthrough medicine in the pharmaceutical space, big demand. Is there any kind of vaccines or drug trials? And there's one company that we are trying to work with, that they are in discovering a cancerous drug in one particular kind of cancer. There is that. So China's trying to get hands on it. But what I'm saying is India can actually utilize that. So India plays more of a market and more of as a talent pool. And we understand the democratic countries of the West much better than China. So China can be the arm or the muscle, and we can come out swinging. So that makes us a better dynamic duo than we separately saying, okay, you go your way, let's see who wins, I go my way, see who wins. One way, that's how I see it. If someone can work between these two nations and be successful, produce something of value, it's very easy for them to, have a monopoly. So,
I see. Yeah. So on that point, may I ask, what do you see in the companies that successfully do business between China and India?
Honestly, that question is easily asked than answered, to be honest. In most of the instances, the Chinese, how they are successful, you look at the BKK group in terms of the Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, the entire family. The founder, he approached, I'm not sure whether this information is that's very public knowledge, I'm not aware, but this is something in the industry talks we haven't. He approached the founder of Xiaomi and he said, okay, there are a lot of these opportunities here, because Xiaomi went public just a few years back. And one of the reasons they got listed in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange was because of the growth in the Indian market. That had it was a big catapult for them in terms of revenue. And in the Chinese, when they lead or give the business to Indians, it's much better rather than they kind of micromanaging everything. So it is true. For me, we have Indian team and a Chinese team. So my Indian team works at a different speed than my Chinese team. So for me, my Chinese team say, it's thank God. Arjun kind of is half Chinese, or he's Chinese now in a way. so that I have the Chinese working mindset. So in terms of a lot of sectors, just it's one Chinese person is equal to what do you call like 3 people. That's more in terms of the blue collar job. But to white collar job, I wouldn't say that. It's similar. I mean, you have white collar people who do work very efficiently and people who are sluggish and laid back. But in terms of what we can do as a company is we are trying to keep all our resources more transparent between both our teams so that they understand. See, today you cannot just identify yourself as I'm an Indian, I'm a Chinese. The world is expanding so much, growing so much. So and while you will have a call with somebody, sometimes I have a call in the morning with my Chinese team. Afternoon, I have it with my Indian team. In the evening, I'm either on a call with my French partner or my Serbian partner. So sometimes it's so cross-cultural, and the way they think, the way they do things, we have to learn to accept the fact that the world is shrinking. So in terms of culture, it has to be multicultural. How it is in London for you, in South London, how it is. Shanghai is getting there, it's getting there, but relatively compared to Beijing, Shanghai is more internationalized, like how it is in Singapore or KL. So it's largely very multicultural. So that fosters development. See, that's why Silicon Valley developed. It's so multicultural. That's one of the reasons we call it like if New York sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cough or a cold. It's multicultural. Similarly, I mean, London, Paris, a lot of these big cities, why Bangalore is like known as the Silicon Valley of India for various reasons. It's highly multicultural. So you have people from all across the country be there, and they have more liberalized scheme for companies. So there is that. So I think multicultural dimension is the key aspect to propel the ecosystem. So being one company doesn't make sense. You have to propel the ecosystem on a larger picture. So that's what China is doing. What Silicon Valley did 30, 40, 50 years back, China is attracting global talents, come settle down in Beijing or in any provinces. We are incentivizing you. And that is very good. In fact, Chinese government does give me incentives for being incorporated in Hangzhou. I mean, I chose Hangzhou because of my personal flair for Hangzhou and opportunities presented itself. But more importantly, the level of incentives the Chinese government provides, irrespective of the provincial government, compared to what India provides, it's huge. But that is a start. Whatever China is doing under President Xi's administration, they are on the right track. At least they're getting results. See, there's always people that will not benefit. There'll always be a faction that will benefit. But on a bigger picture, are we headed down towards a progressive betterment? At least in my how I look at it, I would say it's definitely a yes. That is something we have to pick up from China. Not just develop companies, but you build and foster the ecosystem. That's very much.
I see. Yeah, thank you so much. So a lot about being a multicultural, building that kind of multicultural ecosystem. Yeah, it certainly sounds very exciting. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's much longer than 5 minutes. I apologize. But yeah, I'll stop recording now. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Nicholas. It's lovely always to talk to the Entrepreneurship Society. And yes, it brings back memories of my time in Beta as well. All right.